It's great to be here in Fort Wayne. We continue barnstorming the state of Indiana. We're on our bus tour. The energy, the passion, the excitement we're seeing on the ground is growing day by day. And I couldn't be more encouraged that Indiana will play the decisive role that it is going to play in this primary. That this election, that the common sense Midwestern judgment of the Hoosier State is going to play a pivotal role in this Republican nomination. The eyes of the entire country are looking to Indiana. And Indiana has the opportunity to make a decision, not just for the Republican Party, but for the country. Do we want to go down the road of nominating a campaign based on yelling and screaming and cursing and insults? Or do we want to unite behind a positive, optimistic, forward-looking conservative campaign based on solid policy solutions to the real problems facing this country, based on bringing jobs back to America, bringing manufacturing jobs back to Indiana, raising wages for the working men and women of this country? Yesterday, we made a major announcement that if I am the Republican nominee, my vice presidential nominee will be Carly Fiorina. The reaction has been tremendously positive to that announcement. Carly is a remarkable leader, an incredibly successful business leader who started as a secretary and climbed the corporate ladder to become the CEO of the largest technology company in the world, the first female CEO of a Fortune 20 company in history. Carly has spent her whole life shattering glass ceilings. And in naming a vice presidential nominee, that may well be the most solemn and serious decision any presidential candidate has. You look for someone who is prepared to do the job from day one. The most important job of a vice president is, if the president is incapacitated, to be prepared to step in and lead the country, to be prepared to deal with the challenges facing America, the economic challenges, bringing jobs back to America. You want to nominate someone who has the knowledge, both of our domestic economy and of the world, to do the job. Someone who has the judgment. Someone who is measured and careful, not hot-headed, not rash, not popping off at whatever the latest Twitter storm is, but instead who is a serious leader we can trust to be commander-in-chief and keep this country safe. And you want someone with character. You want someone who is honest and trustworthy, who can be counted on to fulfill the promises made to the American people. All of us are furious with politicians who say anything, who play a role, who play a part, who pretend on the campaign trail, and then go to Washington and they become part of that same corrupt Washington system that enriches big business, enriches Wall Street, and leaves the working men and women of Indiana out in the cold. Enough of that already. We need instead leaders who will fight for the hard-working men and women of this country. And I will tell you, you could not ask for a clearer contrast than the contrast between Carly and me on the one side as conservative, tested, trusted leaders that you can count on to fight for you, versus on the other side, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Donald and Hillary are flip sides of the same coin. Hillary has made millions selling power and influence in Washington, and Donald has made billions buying politicians like Hillary Clinton. Hillary and Donald are the system. If you're fed up with the corruption of Washington, that's why so many Hoosiers, that's why so many Republicans, it's why so many Americans are uniting behind our campaign, because we want instead real solutions to the problems facing this country. Carla?
Well, it's fantastic to be here in Indiana. Obviously, I was very humbled and honored to accept the senator's offer to be his running mate yesterday, and it's very exciting as we barnstorm the state in the bus, back in the bus with the girls. But I think, you know, he talked about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump being two sides of the same coin, part of the system. Boy, is that ever true. Boy, is that ever true. And all you got to do is look at the amount of money Donald Trump has given, whether it's to the DCCC or the John Boehner's super PAC, I mean, he's bought off politicians all his life. And that system, that corrupt system of insiders and double dealing and crony capitalism is why the people of America, the vast majority of the American people, 80% of us, have now concluded the federal government is incompetent and corrupt. It is. And that we have an insider system that works for some. It works for people like Donald Trump. He's big and powerful and wealthy and well-connected. But it doesn't work for most of us. And so what you have here is a fearless fighter who, as a conservative, understands that the thing that ails us is too much money and too much power concentrated in the hands of too few. And we need to put money and power back where it belongs, in citizens' hands, in communities' hands, and in the states.
Senator, a two-part question for you. Number one, how do you and Ms. Fiorina combat the criticism that you're hearing that this move, naming her your running mate, is an act of desperation? And then part two, can you answer that one, then can I ask the part two?
No,
after?
you ask both.
Part two is John Boehner calling you now, in his words, the most miserable SOB he's ever worked with, saying that you are Lucifer in the flesh. And I'm wondering how you square that with the necessity to pull together some of those establishment Republicans who are to get the nomination. Reaction to that? Well,
let's start with the first point. It surprises precisely nobody that Donald Trump's response to my announcing Carly was to engage in insults. Listen, Donald does one of four things. He yells, he screams, he curses, or he insults. I suppose you could start a drinking game on which one of the four Donald is going to respond to any given stimulus that might occur. But the one he does most frequently is he insults. He insults everybody and anybody he encounters. So, of course, he would scream desperate. That is Donald Trump. It's the only way he knows how to operate. Yesterday, when we made the announcement, I gave the reasons why we made the announcement early. It is certainly unusual to make a vice presidential announcement early before the convention. But this is, if anything, an unusual presidential cycle. And as I explained yesterday, the reason for making the announcement was several-fold. Number one, to unite the party. Our party is fractured right now. If we remain fractured, we will lose. Donald Trump keeps trying to divide the party, to tear us into bits. If we are fractured, we lose. If we unite, we're going to win the nomination, but even more importantly, we're going to win the general election and beat Hillary Clinton. I think Carly is a powerful leader to help unite this party and bring us all together. But secondly, I think it's important for the people of Indiana, for the American people, to know exactly what you're going to get and to give a clear choice. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are virtually indistinguishable on policy issues across the field. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton both have come out in support of raising taxes. I think the people of Indiana pay too much in taxes already. As president, I'm going to cut your taxes. We're going to adopt a simple flat tax and abolish the IRS. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton both support the individual mandate in Obamacare. I think Obamacare is the biggest job killer in America, and as president, I'm going to repeal every word of Obamacare. And by the way, if you're concerned about jobs and economic growth, raising taxes and keeping the Obamacare individual mandate, as Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump want to do, will kill small businesses and drive jobs overseas. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton both support allowing illegal immigrants to become U.S. citizens. Donald would fly them home to their home countries first, then let them come back as U.S. citizens. As president, I will stop amnesty and secure the borders and end sanctuary cities. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton on foreign policy both think we should be neutral between Israel and the Palestinians. As president, I will not be neutral. We'll stand unapologetically with the nation of Israel. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton both think we should keep this Iranian nuclear deal. Indeed, Donald gave a speech yesterday saying we have to keep the deal, we have to keep our word. Well, that's what Hillary Clinton says, too. That's what big government liberals say. That's what people who do not understand the nature of Ayatollah Khamenei and radical Islamic terrorism say. As president, I'll rip to shreds this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal. And let me say, if the Republican Party allows the choice in November to be a choice between two New York big government liberals, we will have failed the American people. We will have failed the American people badly because both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are Washington insiders. Indeed, Donald Trump's entire campaign, like Hillary Clinton's, is run by Washington lobbyists. Donald's lobbyist campaign manager just last week told the top officials at the RNC that Donald was simply, quote, playing a role, playing a part, that he doesn't mean anything that he's saying, that this is all fake, that he's a phony. Now, we know Hillary Clinton's a phony. I suppose I'll give Donald's lobbyist campaign manager credit for candor. Normally, people don't admit they're a phony till after the election. Donald is telling us he's lying to us. And so this announcement gives a clear contrast. You could not ask for a clearer contrast than the contrast between Carly and me on one side and Donald and Hillary on the other. And I think the people of Indiana want a positive, optimistic, conservative message going forward, a clear contrast. Donald and Hillary believe in more government as the solution to every problem. I think government is the problem. And as president, I'm going to get the federal government off of your backs, off of small businesses' backs. We're going to bring back jobs. We're going to raise wages. We're going to expand opportunity. And we do that by getting government off of our backs.
So not a desperate move, is what you're saying.
No, Donald's attack is false. I know that's a shocking statement. But look, Donald, there's a reason Donald wants everyone to think this race is over. You know, Donald strutted out the stage after the last election and declared himself the presumptive nominee. I know that act of humility was an astonishing thing from Donald. Donald wants this race to be over because he cannot earn a majority of the delegates who have been elected by the people. Donald had a good week. He had a good week in the Northeast, where he lives. And Donald is very worried because this race has shifted to much more favorable terrain. I think Indiana will be a pivotal state for the entire country. And so Donald, sadly, aided and abetted by media network executives who are all liberal Democrats, who are all rooting for Hillary, are quick to say that the race is over. Donald desperately wants it to be over. It's the same reason Donald won't debate, because he cannot defend his left-wing policies that he agrees with Hillary Clinton on. Indeed, at the last debate we had, I asked Donald, name one instance in which you have ever stood up to Washington. Ever. In your life. You're nearly 70 years old. Point one time you stood up to Washington. Donald could not point to a single instance in his life that he had ever stood up to Washington, because Donald Trump is a Washington insider. Washington is corrupt. Donald Trump is corrupt. Hillary Clinton is corrupt. They're all part of the same corrupt system of buying power and influence to get rich at your expense. It's the working men and women who get left out in the cold. Why do you think so many working men and women are seeing their wages held down? Because Washington is corrupt, and politicians like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton sell us down the river. It's why people are angry. Now, your second question was about John Boehner. John Boehner had some interesting comments last night. He actually didn't abbreviate what he said. He was a little bit more expressive. He allowed his inner Trump to come out. You know, I will say this. If you're wondering who actually has stood up to Washington, I think John Boehner has made it crystal clear. John Boehner, in his remarks, described Donald Trump as his texting and golfing buddy. So if you want someone that's a texting and golfing buddy, if you're happy with John Boehner as Speaker of the House and you want a president like John Boehner, Donald Trump's your man. And by the way, Donald Trump gave John Boehner's super PAC $100,000 just a few years ago. Donald Trump has been funding John Boehner, and he's also been funding Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. If you like what John Boehner, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid have done, Donald Trump is your guy. But let me reveal a little bit of how Washington operates. You know, Boehner's comments, he said something like, he's the worst SOB I've ever worked with, something like that.
Lucifer in the flesh.
Well, there was that too. But the interesting thing is, he said that I've ever worked with. I've never worked with John Boehner. Truth of the matter is, I don't know the man. I've met John Boehner 2 or 3 times in my life. If I have said 50 words in my life to John Boehner, I'd be surprised, and every one of them has consisted of pleasantries. Good to see you, Mr. Speaker. I've never had any substantive conversation with John Boehner in any respect. And indeed, this is something that's not publicly known. During the government shutdown, I reached out to John Boehner, and I offered for Michael Lee and me to come over and work with the Speaker. Can we resolve this and actually get something meaningful done to stop the disaster that is Obamacare? John Boehner's response was, I have no interest in talking to you. What possibly could be accomplished by having a conversation? No, I will not meet. So when he says that I'm the worst guy he's ever worked with, he's never worked with me. The thing to understand about Washington, actually Boehner's comments reveal everything that is wrong and corrupt with Washington, everything that you're angry with. When John Boehner calls me Lucifer, he's not directing that at me. He's directing that at you. What Boehner is angry with me for is not anything I've ever said to him. I haven't said much of anything to him. What Boehner is angry with me for is standing with the American people, is energizing and encouraging House conservatives to stand with the American people and actually honor the commitments we've made. What Boehner is angry with is that conservatives said, if we promise to repeal Obamacare, let's actually stand up and fight Obamacare. What Boehner is angry with is that we said, if we promise to stop amnesty, let's actually honor our promises and stop amnesty. What Boehner is angry with is we said, if we promise to stop the debt that is bankrupting our kids and grandkids, let's actually do something meaningful to honor those commitments. If we promise to keep this country safe, let's do something real to stop President Obama's misguided plan to bring tens of thousands of Syrian Muslim refugees into this country who may well be infiltrated with ISIS terrorists. What Boehner is angry with is the American people holding him accountable. That's what the anger is, because the corrupt system that Boehner and Hillary have been enmeshed with for years, funded by Donald Trump. Donald's writing checks to Boehner, he's writing checks to Hillary. He's funding the corrupt system. It is unaccountable to the people. And what made John Boehner mad is that I led a movement of the people to hold Washington accountable. Donald Trump is playing a part, playing a role, to use the words of his lobbyist campaign manager, pretending to be an outsider. Donald Trump is the ultimate Washington insider. He is a lobbyist who's gotten rich exploiting government power to hammer the little guy, to hammer the working men and women. Donald Trump pretends to be tough on immigration. He is the only candidate in this race who has had a $1 million court judgment against him for hiring illegal aliens. He pretends to be tough on illegal immigration. He's the only candidate in this race who right now hires hundreds of foreign workers at this swanky Florida hotel because he won't hire American workers. He says Americans aren't willing to work as waiters and waitresses. He's abusing the system right now to take advantage of American workers while pretending to be siding with American workers. And Donald Trump told the New York Times editorial board that everything he said on immigration is a lie, that he doesn't believe it, he's not going to build a wall, he's not going to actually deport anybody. Now, all of that's on tape. The New York Times has it. They can release it. Donald won't let them. They've said they need Donald's permission to release it. If Donald didn't say this, he should want the tape released. If it would exonerate it, but it wouldn't. He said the same thing to the New York Times that his lobbyist campaign manager said. And the impact of that, we're tired of politicians who don't tell us the truth.
Senator, you've told voters to vote against John Kasich. John Kasich has told voters here in Indiana to vote against you. Ms. Fiorina just last night called for John Kasich to drop out. What shape is this alliance in?
I recognize that the media is all eager to talk about an alliance. There is no alliance. Kasich and I made a determination where to focus our energies, where to focus our assets, where to focus our resources. Kasich and I, John Kasich is a good man. He's an honorable man. We disagree on a number of policy issues, but I'll tell you where we do agree. We agree that Hillary Clinton as president would be a disaster, and we agree that nominating Donald Trump elects Hillary Clinton. That Hillary Clinton, that Donald Trump may be the only person on earth Hillary Clinton can beat. And Hillary doesn't only beat Donald, she beats Donald by double digits. So John Kasich made the decision in his own political self-interest to withdraw from Indiana and to go compete elsewhere. And that was a perfectly reasonable decision. And listen, I would make a very explicit outreach to the people in Indiana who were supporting John Kasich. If you don't want to see Hillary Clinton as the president, if you don't want to see Donald Trump as the nominee, which makes certain Hillary Clinton becomes the president, then I ask for your support, because we can only win if we unite. And my object from day one is to unite the party. It's what Carly and I are doing together. And if we unite, we will win this nomination and we'll win the general election.
Donald Trump has said that Hillary Clinton is using. Donald Trump has said that the only thing Hillary Clinton has going for her is that she's a woman and that she's using a woman's car. What's your reaction to that?
Oh, listen, it is not surprising that Donald Trump attacks Hillary for being a woman. Donald has a problem with strong women. This is not subtle. It's not complicated. He has a real problem with strong women. It's one of the reasons he cannot win a general election. And, you know, there's an irony to that. Because before Donald was pretending to be an outsider, when he was, to use Donald's own words, he said a couple of months ago, quote, 7 months ago, I, Donald Trump, was the establishment. That's his own words. Back when he was not pretending to be an outsider, Donald was funding Hillary Clinton. Writing check after check after check to Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump contributed twice to Hillary's presidential campaign. That means Donald Trump believed Hillary would make a good president. He wrote checks to help her become president. Donald Trump has described Hillary as one of the best secretaries of state in history. Listen, I think Hillary was a disaster as Secretary of State, that the Obama-Clinton foreign policy didn't work. So now, and you got to remember, Donald Trump gave over $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation. Remember all the scandals with the Clinton Foundation, the pay-to-play? Those pay-to-play scandals are scandals Donald Trump understands very well, because he's been part of the corruption. You know, it was striking when John Boehner was attacking me and praising Donald Trump. The other person he chose to praise was Hillary Clinton. If you like John Boehner as Speaker of the House, he's made clear Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump are both acceptable to him. He said Hillary was terrific, was talented, but that guy Cruz, who actually does what he says, who stands with the working people, he's terrible. That conveys everything you need to know. You know, there's a reason Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton came to Donald Trump's wedding. Donald and Hillary are flip sides of the same coin. It is the Washington corruption. And I think the people of Indiana want a positive, optimistic, fresh, new campaign based on leaders who will do what they say and who will fight for the working men and women of this country. My top priority as president is jobs and economic growth. We will bring manufacturing jobs back to the state of Indiana.
So you last question. Suggested John Kasich. Talk a little bit about what you plan to do for the people in Indiana.
The number one priority of Hoosiers is seeing economic growth again. You know, we look, for example, at Carrier leaving Indiana, going to Mexico. That is a manifestation of the failures of the Obama-Clinton economy. And it's a direct result of failed government policy. And actually, Carrier is a good illustration of the difference between Carly and me on one side and Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton on the other. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton respond to something like Carrier by saying, we're going to punish Carrier. We're going to use government power to go and punish the corporation. We're going to use force. That's what Obama does as well. That's what big government liberals do. They use government power to punish anyone who responds to the policies that are driving the jobs overseas. I think that's exactly backwards. As president, I don't intend to use government power to punish American citizens, American companies, American job creators. That's not the role of government, to be a bully and punish. The reason Carrier is moving those jobs overseas is that the Obama administration has driven Carrier out of America. And this is why it is so important that we have a debate. You know, it's been 48 days since a Republican debate. 48 days, the Democrats have had a debate. They're planning a second debate. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders think enough of the American people to give them a debate. I think the people of Indiana deserve a debate before Tuesday between me and Donald Trump. I've accepted 2 debates here in Indiana. Donald is unwilling to debate, and the reason is he cannot answer the question how you bring jobs back. Other than he says he wants to punish Carrier. Here's what I'm going to do. I understand that jobs come when you reduce the burdens on small businesses. You know, Ronald Reagan and before him, John F. Kennedy, both understood when you cut taxes and lift regulations, the result of that is millions and